Hello and welcome to CS230. This is lecture 10 and lesson 5. And this lesson is going to focus on cross-origin resource sharing, or CORS. And we saw rather quickly in the last lesson that you can encounter security errors when you're using JavaScript AJAX in certain circumstances. In other words, when you use AJAX to load a resource from a domain that's different to the domain that's performing the loading. In other words, they don't have the same origin. So it means that you haven't made a JavaScript error or anything like that in your code, but it really flags you to tell you that you're doing something that violates the default security policies. And it doesn't matter whether the policies are errors, it means that your app will not work. So I'm going to show you a brief overview of CORS and how you can actually modify your application so that you can use AJAX across domains. Remember, this is the kind of thing we were looking at last time. We were getting these errors here so that every time we called the app, you see we were running it from our local host, which is our Apache installation, and our service was running on the back end on port 3000, and we can see as we're looking here, we're getting the request. So we're sending all of the data here, okay, but we're actually, the result has been blocked. So we want to see how we might fix that. Okay, so what's CORS? CORS is a protocol that enables scripts running on a browser client to interact with resources from a different origin. Okay, and as we say, you know, there are policies there that are followed by the XML HTTP request and fetch, another object that allows JavaScript to only make specific calls to specific URLs on the same origin without changing. So what's a different origin then? And a different origin is one that might have a different scheme, you know, HTTP or secure HTTP, a different domain, or a different port. And in our situation, the examples we've been using, we were using the same domain, which was localhost, but we were working on a different port, and that's where we got an error. So in order to facilitate CORS, the service needs to indicate it would accept requests from another origin. We saw down here, when our program is running, it will still call and it'll accept and do the work, but it's not going to actually respond. So that's what's important here. So you need to do this by sending back some headers. So there's a few headers, important headers that can be set, but the primary one really is determines who can access the resource, and that's called access control allow origin. And that tells you, gives the origin it gives a descriptor, you know, about who can do that. And the simplest one would be to say allow everybody to use the resource by having a star, and then the other is you only allow a specific one to have the access, and that's here, for example, .com is the only one. So I found this brilliant article that I use for CORS all the time by Steve Hobbs, and he talks about the two types of CORS requests and presents it really nicely: the simple requests and the pre-flight requests. So, and as a developer, you really don't care which about this unless you're, you know, really going down into low-level managing requests with servers. But you can see different kinds of requests appear in your log, in your network log, and so forth. A lot of the work is done by the browser. So simple requests happens when the browser deems that the request itself meets a certain set of requirements, so that you use get post or head, it's safe, a CORS safe listed header is used, and when the content type header is followed by some of the headers we know already, are used, like the XWWW form, URL encoded, multipart form data, or text plain. There are no event listers listening to the XML HTTP request upload object, and there's no readable stream object. So if that's the case, the request makes its way across to the service. There are also pre-flight requests. So in other words, if you don't meet any of these requirements directly, then what happens is that the browser will make a pre-flight request using the options method, and that determines the exact CORS capabilities of the server. That's sent back, and then the requests can be made a little bit later. You know, so it deals with a lot of other headers. For example, the control request method, the request headers, and the origin. Usually all that kind of stuff. And you can play with this and figure this out for yourself by using curl to talk to your local host and see what happens. If you want this, for example, with curl request says, I'd like to make a get request with the content type and accept headers from as shown, okay, using localhost 3000. Is that possible? And then the server will respond and include some access control headers back to you. And once it's all okay, everything will happen. Here's, for example, a response to a pre-flight request. Okay. So it's nice, okay? So really what happens is that the example, the access control allow headers echoes back all the headers that were asked for in the option request. And that means that requested headers are allowed to be sent. And if that's the case, then we can actually go ahead. If it isn't, then it'll be omitted from the response and the browser would reject the call then. So it's fine. So Also, Mansour Hussain writes about CORS, and he has this really nice interaction sequence diagram that you could actually use and have a look at it if you want to look at it that way. Okay, so we're going to look at CORS for our earlier examples, and we can actually, one of the things that happens that Mansour Hussain has done is that he has this Enable CORS website that allows you and shows you how you can actually show with servers or services written in any language how to do that. So with PHP, you can just add this header and it will allow you to access it. So we'll do that when we look at the test a little bit later. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our program. So I'm using this service here. I'm going to kill that service and I'm going to start a new service. Instead of demo 9, it's demo 10. And it's the exact same, except it has some CORS stuff built in. So let's have a look at demo 10. So now I am actually, all I'm doing is I've changed the service, so I set some headers to allow the origin from anywhere in my Node.js. I'm also setting all the other headers that I'd like, as well. And that's it. So I can modify it and make it work. So I now run that service, okay? And we know it's running here, okay? And now I'll go back to my request. I'll reload this. And now look, it's fine. We're not getting any of the errors. And we're actually working cross domains or cross origin, because localhost here is calling the services writing here. Okay, easy enough. We can actually go the other way as well. Okay, and we could have the software that's running on our Node server access to PHP, and we could make that work as well by making a modification to the PHP. Okay. And we can set up and use our set up all sorts of headers within our call. Okay, if we want, let me see. I have it here. Yeah, I'm not doing it in this one. I will do it in here. So here I'm actually doing some CORS requests within my Ajax caller, if you like, my Ajax client that's running from my Node.js server. And here, instead of making a post request, I'm actually making a post request using CORS here across to my Ajax, my PHP, and I can modify the PHP by including the information that I have here. Simple change to the PHP to allow the CORS request, and I can go the other way around. And I'm not going to, I mean, I've done it. I've included a code in the demo. You can play with it yourself, but it's fairly straightforward to do, and you can try it yourself. I've also got an example here how I can actually use set up the CORS request here with credentials to say that I can have a straightforward request instead of a preflight request, and you can check and play with that. So this is a post CORS method that I'm adding to the jQuery as opposed to just a normal post, and it works just fine. Okay, so we could do all this with curl. We can just do it with our own apps. It's nice to make them work. So we've seen how to use cross-origin resource sharing using Ajax for various kinds of scenarios. Thank you very much for watching.